Yeah, I feel like the nowadays the stage banter art is lost a bit. Now
It's a ball bag.
Yeah. If you're not watching this episode, tune in for cat anus and balls.
It's gonna get demonetized.
Did you ever watch Price is Right? Please have your listen to Bob Barker. What the fuck, dude? You're from that generation.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Don't want to get your pet spayed or neutered?
So he has been Ben's neutered, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't take him. They left him.
So wait,
I guess they just went in and snipped like they do on us guys now.
Really?
Yeah, so he's still got the decorations. All the accoutrements.
Hey, welcome to another episode of 2020. My name is Cory Peza. I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, as always, Siobhán Cronin.
Hey, everyone.
And Benny Goodman.
I thought we were trying to brand the word cohort, like we were taking the word from the English language.
He's rebelling.
And using it and wielding it in our own vernacular.
I got sick of it already. It's crazy.
Yeah, but not enough people have listened to this enough to be annoyed by it. Don't you realize you have to be sick of it 6 times?
Yeah, but I'm selfish and I've heard it far too many
times.
times, so I'm sick of it. Fine. The cohorts. Ben.
Hi.
So much enthusiasm.
Anyways, thank you for tuning into this episode. This week,
thank you for tuning in, Cory.
This week, we got a special guest. You might notice at the bottom of the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen on every episode this thing that says sponsored by Lost Symphony.
But not subscribe. But you should subscribe. Because we've never say we're terrible. We literally fail every marketing class. We don't even listen to the people that talk to us, like Andrew Vivaldi and Jason Leckberg, that like totally tell us exactly what to do. And then we're just like, fuck it. We won't even ask them. We won't even ask for the sale. Subscribe. Like it, subscribe, literally press the button. If you want to know who's up next or like what, just subscribe.
Are you done?
Can you edit that down so it's way better than that?
How about we get to introducing our guest like Cory was going to do?
As I was saying, you've seen the Lost Symphony at the bottom of the page. If you have not checked out Lost Symphony, please get on that as well. But if you have checked out Lost Symphony, then you've heard our guest this week, who is Paul Lourenco, the drummer of Lost Symphony. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Did I say your name right, by the way?
Yes, Lourenco.
Good. So this is something we should probably get into. I believe Ben's been saying your name incorrectly for about a decade and telling everyone else the incorrect way to say your name.
Hold on. Do you know there's a reason for that?
Of course, there's always a reason. What's the reason, Ben?
I take a lot of influence from Kurt Cobain. And when Kurt would sign his name, he'd sometimes sign it K-U-R-T, sometimes K-U-R-D-T, sometimes with a C. He'd put a smiley face. And even inside the record, like he would spell his name incorrectly or in different permutations throughout. So I just thought, like, whatever. Like Lorenzo Lamas, Lorenzo, like Lorenz. I've done every, like, Lorenzo, Conexento, like, whatever.
Yeah, but there's a difference because he changed the spelling. You're changing the pronunciation.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking where he left off before he blew his head off and then fucking taking it somewhere else.
He's probably not the best role model. But anyways, Paul, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for not mispronouncing my name.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. But so it's always exciting. We've only done this once before with another member of the band, which was Kelly. So this is another instance where we actually have a majority of Lost Symphony on one call, which has happened like maybe 2-3 times tops.
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of new for me too, because this is actually my first time sort of meeting you and virtually, right? I mean, we're in this giant collective of a music group, and yet some of us have not actually been in the same room
because
together.
Paul's so antisocial that you have to meet him through a Zoom, that even though you've flown from Miami and from Ohio to Boston like 16 times, and I've begged him, he's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Like he sat on his couch with his cat, like literally like watching wrestling instead of coming and hanging out with us. Is that true, Paul?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it is a pandemic after all.
Right.
But even though I'm saying before that, I'm talking way before that.
We've been working on this record for like the better half of a decade at this point. So
Right. Yeah.
True.
There's been other
Fair
pandemics
enough.
since this pandemic, dude.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Paul is the drummer for Lost Symphony, plays on most of the tracks. We've had a couple stand-ins, but and
You're gonna call Jason Casa and David Abraziz a stand-in?
Well, we are the band. They're
what would you
guests.
call them?
I'd
Feet.
call them- yeah. Yeah, Paul, thanks for stepping it up.
FEAT, period.
If one thing that bonds Paul and I together is everything's a pun. It's a pun off or it's a reference to something. So like, well, we were referencing Prince earlier, and it was just how many times could we reference like lyrics from the same song before we totally annoy everybody around us? That's how we bond. Is through puns.
This is good. 'Cause
And
I'm
Danzig,
annoyed already,
Glenn
so this
Danzig.
will be great.
Oh my gosh.
It worked.
How funny is Paul? I have a question for you. How funny is Danzig?
No, Danzig's pretty fucking funny.
But why?
I don't know. Memes.
It's good.
You tell me why kitty litter? Is that why? Why is
Okay,
Danzig
Okay, well,
funny?
wait. Before Benny already curb stomps this whole conversation, I have to say, for anyone not watching, tune into the YouTube cast because you have your glorious pet like making little cameo appearances in the corner of your screen. Can you make an introduction for me?
Sure.
Because I've only seen this over
me a
Instagram, and I'm like,
Come on.
I'm completely enamored by the
You
beauty
wanna
of this
see.
creature.
They want to meet you. This is Blizzard.
Oh my god!
For everyone who can't see, first off, tune into the YouTube. But he's a Sphinx cat, which if you don't know what it is, it's basically like a giant ball bag walking around with.
It's accurate.
He seems very lovable too. Like when we first started, it was like all up cuddling. Like most cats with me, they're just like get away.
Oh yeah,
But
no,
this isn't.
he's,
I guess it's not technically a cat, correct? This is
Well,
like
no,
a different
he's-
breed.
no, he's still a feline.
Yeah.
He's like from the island of Dr. Moreau.
But some cats are definitely more attached to their owners than others, like Siamese and Sphinxes, and some of the more strange breeds there are a little bit more attached. It seems.
Is weird.
I've always
Well,
been
yeah.
a dog person, so you're really
I love
selling
my
me
cat.
on this. I feel it would be like badass for me to have a Sphinx, but I don't want to steal your thunder there.
Yeah.
Well, you
That's all right.
adopted the cat. You adopted the cat because Sphinxes are like bred, and they're kind of like a mean thing because people that like. Sorry, Siobhán, but people that get like, purebred animals, this is just a personal opinion, and Harvey Levin has told me over 10,000 episodes of People's Court, like animals that get adopted, like will love you more. And like the reason the bulldog, for example, like can't breathe and like dies in like 6 years and all, it's because it's like genetically deformed from being inbred and created to what people want it to be. And a Sphinx cat is a perfect example of that. They're like, hey, we can't make a dinosaur yet, but we can make a cat that looks like a ball bag that loves you endlessly, that you have to clean in between its crevices, and it does all kinds of weird shit cats don't normally do. But Paul only got the cat because one of his good friends saved the cat from being bred in captivity. So Paul was the savior, and because Paul it's too nice to go out because he didn't want to lose an animal, because you have to say goodbye to an animal. He never wanted to go be the one. So people actually had to give him the cat to shelter. And he gave it shelter, like the Rolling Stones song. Cue the music.
Amazing. So Paul, just so everyone can get an idea for who you are and some of your background, maybe you can tell your story about how you get into drums, how you met Benny, just like how you came to know this group of people.
Well, boy, I've been playing drums, since I was like 10, 12, something like that. My dad was a musician, so there was always drums and guitars around the house. So I just kind of picked them up and started playing from as far back as I can remember. And it was about 10 or 12 when I finally actually tried to focus and learn and figure it out. And just been in bands ever since. And I met Ben on MySpace, of all things.
Was it mine? I
Okay.
thought it was Craigslist, dude.
No, it was MySpace.
Wait a minute.
Or maybe it was Craigslist.
We met on Craigslist. We met on Craigslist, dude.
But it was MySpace time. So
So we did exactly what people did at the time, which they now do with Facebook. We met on Craigslist, but then before we actually exchanged information, we vetted one another on MySpace.
right.
So I think you sent me your MySpace link with your terrible music attached to it. and my terrible music attached to it. And we're like, oh, you're in a shitty band. I want to be in a shitty band. And then we were in a shitty band together.
Yep. And then we were in several shitty bands together.
To this day.
And then finally we convinced some people with talent to join us, and Lost Symphony happened.
But do you remember your answering machine when I first met you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was the
relive the answering machine?
No, I don't dare to recreate that at this point. That was when I still had a lust for life and, a little bit of excitement left in me.
Yeah. No, when I first called Paul, I was like, I'm like, this guy can't have a normal job. Like, what? Who the fuck is this guy?
It was a little bit more David Lee Roth and a little bit less Jeff Tate, but close.
I was going more for the Paul Stanley, but
there you go.
Banter,
Okay,
in the banter.
Oh, fair enough.
I love you, Paul. Yeah. Paul, you've been great. Paul, it's hot as hell in here.
It was actually quite close to the Paul Stanley, who is, in my estimation, the finest stage banter of all time. Nobody compares to Paul Stanley.
What's some of your favorite lines from Paul Stanley?
Oh, come on. You're trying to get me to do the imitation. I'm not going to do it.
You gotta do it, man. Come on. Get some of your favorite Paul Stanley lines, man. So you know how much Paul loves Paul Stanley. He had like a 48-minute mashup of just Paul Stanley banter and listened to the whole thing and loved every moment of it. So you can absolutely give me your favorite lines. Fuck you, Cory. Edit this down so it's tight.
I said, honey, that ain't no pistol. That's my love gun.
Wait, Paul, give us another. No, that's what we're going to do. Lines with Paul through Paul Stanley. Paul's Paul Stanley impression. Do it again. Give me another line.
How many people out there like some alcohol?
Line number.
Gin.
Oh, man, I hope we tour someday and we just give you a mic.
Hold on, wait, give me another one.
Eric Carr on the drums.
Wait, you got to have at least one more.
Okay, let's see.
There's so many good ones.
There is. Why can't I think of any? Oh, I said the party's in my pants.
Yeah,
that was my favorite one at the time. Actually, was the party's in my pants.
You got to think that at the time, Paul Stanley was in front of 20,000 people, and they were introduced as the best band in the land. So, like, the fact that he's coming on and talking, it's so ridiculous. How's your ball bag?
Yeah, I feel like the nowadays the stage banter art is lost a bit. Now, just
it's your ball bag.
Yeah. If you're not watching this episode, tune in for cat anus and balls.
It's gonna get demonetized.
Did you ever watch Price is Right? Please have your listen to Bob Barker. What the fuck, dude? You're from that generation.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Don't want to get your pet spayed or neutered?
Sure.
Oh, that's right. He did say that.
After every episode.
I used to watch that.
Did you learn anything from Price is Right?
Very committed to that cause.
So he has been neutered, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't take him. They left him.
So wait. So
I guess they just went in and snipped like they do on us guys now.
Really?
Yeah. So he's still got the decorations. All the accoutrements.
Oh man!
I don't know how to direct the conversation.
I feel like it's an exercise in futility on this episode already. I'm just gonna go with it. We've had cat balls and anus flashed already. There's no point. There's no salvaging any sort of actual constructive discussion. But I would like to learn more about Paul in general, I guess.
Well, so yeah, let's go back. So you mentioned that your parents were musicians, or maybe your father.
Yeah, my dad and my stepdad were both musicians.
Okay,
they were friends and were in bands together and stuff.
Well, so was there any encouragement from them for you to pursue music, or like the opposite? I'm always curious about people that come from musical families, whether their parents say, "Oh yeah, you should definitely go into music and like follow it," or like, "No, it's a hard life, don't do it."
Yeah, no, both my dad and my stepdad were very encouraging as far as me getting into music and stuff. I don't know if they just needed a drummer or what, but I did play my first gig with both of them in a band with another guy playing bass, and we played at the Living Room in Providence.
So wait,
my
that's
God.
in the 80s.
That's like the Partridge Family. So wait, you're with your dad and your stepdad at your first gig. Like, what kind of Grateful Dead shit is that in the first place?
Yeah, no, we were a little bit more Judas Priest and less Grateful Dead, but
Wow,
definitely a multi-generational band. My dad and stepdad were 34. Our bass player was 24 and I was 14.
Wow.
They snuck me in. They were like, "Oh no, he's 16."
Well,
it was the living room, so they're like, yeah, whatever.
And it was
there's no door. There's no door in the bathroom here.
It was the living room in the 80s, so it was like anything goes, you know.
Well, it could have been nicer then, because when I got there in the 90s and the 2000s, it was like so trash. Like, was it actually as bad in the 80s?
Oh, that was a different place, actually.
Yeah, they moved it, yeah.
Yeah, the original one had a big bubble window on it.
So that was like the foyer?
Sure, yeah. The parlor.
Yes.
There's another place called the parlor, actually.
Great story,
Cool story, bro.
Well, so did you ever get any formal training as a drummer? I mean, violin is a totally different world, so you honestly can't do much without getting at least some lessons.
Right.
But a lot of people are self-taught on drums or guitar. So did you ever pursue lessons, or did you learn from your family? Like, what were your influences and how did you learn?
I'm mostly self-taught. I mean, I learned a few things from my dad and stepdad, just like a drum beat or some guitar chords and stuff. But honestly, I never really liked practicing the stuff that they showed me, so I would just do my own thing. And that's why I ended up being more geared towards the drums than the guitar. It seemed easier for me to just kind of fall into it and hear what was going on. I didn't have to like delve too deep into the theory or anything like that.
So what did you like? What were your influences that you wanted to play?
Well, probably Prince is definitely one of the first earliest ones. I was 11 when I saw Purple Rain in the movies, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And then I realized I couldn't sing or dance. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just play drums. How's that?
Yeah. Wow.
Didn't Prince have a girl do that?
Actually, Prince did that. Prince did everything.
Well, that's the truth. Yeah, Prince played everything.
That's what I liked about Prince the most.
Well, that's what you're most like now, because Paul plays every single instrument, and you're actually doing a song a day online, which I got to tell you, I love seeing you do that.
Yeah, good for you. That's awesome.
Not only are you a great drummer, but we did a cover a while back of the Cars, Just When I Needed, and I got the honor. Like I'm friends with Elliot Easton online. He probably doesn't know about it, but like I know about it. And I sent him the song one time, and he was like, "This is really cool," because first off, we played it at the speed that I knew it, so it was a completely different beat. I was like, "I like your interpretation." I'm like, "What? My memory?" And then he was like, "The guitar solo is great." Meanwhile, Paul played the guitar solo. So Elliot Easton from the Cars is actually like, he thinks he's complimenting my guitar playing, and he's like complimenting the drummer, which is just so insulting. It's like he could have been the bass player, but nah, he's the drummer.
Nope.
Well, speaking of the fact that you do play all the instruments, how do you think that affects your writing when you're playing drums? Because you're a very, I think, observant drummer from what I know is for everything we've done. You're very cognizant of everything else going on compared to a lot of drummers who are cognizant of how loud they can smash the shit out of their snare drum. So how does that work in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helped me kind of lock in with the different instruments and find my spot and, play for the song or the piece of music, rather than just trying to show off my own thing or, do my own interpretation of the song. It's more about like serving the parts and finding my spots and
with Lost Symphony, that becomes increasingly more difficult because to find a spot in there is a friggin' nightmare.
Yes. Yeah, Lost Symphony is totally such a different animal too, as far as the way I approach it, as opposed to like my original bands and stuff where we are used to rehearsing a song for 6 months before
Bloodline Theory representing, so
nice.
Everyone knows. Not only is Paul an amazing drummer that plays in a gazillion bands, including Bloodline Theory, who's an incredible band, he does all the artwork. So it's weird because he does the artwork for 2020, so this program, but he doesn't do the artwork for Lost Symphony, but he does the artwork for a ton of bands, and he has such a unique style. So I decided today to
So go back. I want to hear more about your approach to Lost Symphony. There is when you're writing.
Very unique.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I kind of come in and improv over it for the most part. I've listened to it a few times, but I don't really work out the parts ahead of time. It's kind of, I go in and we break it down and go section by section and just kind of like figure out what works. And Ben coaches me along as to, what might be a good idea.
When you say coaching, do you mean he hits the button and yells an arbitrary beat that might be someone in time? And
basically he berates me and tells me that that I'm an idiot and that I should just do it, and he knows I'm the greatest, but I just need to wake the fuck up and come in and play the awesomest thing I've ever played in my life.
That's basically what I get out of it too.
Hold on,
it's like, do it again.
Can I defend that though? Because let me tell you something about the approach that Paul does and why I think Paul is such a great drummer. Because we've worked with a lot of guys who are very rudimented. Like a guy like Jason Costa is a fucking technician, even though he plays it off like he's cash. He's not. He fucking plays like 175 million beats per minute and like does crazy, ridiculous stuff and plays, traditional grip. Like Paul won't pretend that he does that kind of stuff. But what I love about Paul, which is honestly the most important thing to me in a drummer, and I feel like David Abraziz is kind of like my soul brother in this sense too, but like Paul and I have played together so much that we almost have, like, even though I'm bickering at him, he knows what I'm saying to him because we've worked together for so long. So with Lost Symphony, he knows my brother and I come up with crazy shit that he's gonna be like, this is obnoxious, why do I have to count this? And he's already mad. So let me tell you something about Paul.
I think
he plays
mad
better.
Is a good starting
he plays
point
better
for
when he's mad. First off. Secondly, we have all the drums already set up. So he walks in, all the mics are set up, all the sounds are there. So all he needs to do is play. So there's no setup, there's nothing. He just goes. So we play the song and he'll listen to it a few times. And in 20 minutes, he'll nail a whole section. And I'll be like, dude, play it. It's crazy. You can. You suck. Just do it again. Why does it suck? You got to get to work in 10 minutes. Dude, if we don't do it now, why do we waste our life? And we do that. And in 20 minutes, he'll get a part that someone won't get in an entire day of recording. And that's why I get mad at him when he's like, dude, I got to be at work. I'm like, we are one take away from Cory not saying, let's do this again. So like, that's why I get mad, because Paul can come down, hear something for the first time, dissect it minute by minute and just say, okay. And he'll play that as its own separate piece and we'll come up together. And I'll yell at him. I'll be like, dude, play a reverse Billie Jean beat. And he'll understand what that fucking means. I don't know what it means, but he gets it and he plays it and he does it right. And I'll be like, okay, do this Mike Portnoy thing with your feet, but I want you to do a Carl Palmer thing with your hands. And he'll be like, sure. And I know he doesn't know what I mean, but he does something that it's like, a button that does nothing, but it makes you happy. Like he does that. And that's what you hear on Lost Symphony is everyone goes, this is great drumming. Like I can't even believe. He did not think about it for more than 20 minutes. So when I say, man, this could be the take of your life, he's thinking about, do I have time to go to Dunkin' Donuts? And some fucking asshole's listening to the record going, this is the best drumming I've ever heard. And it's just Paul waking up and drinking his Dunkin' fucking Donuts. And that's insane.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
that was a pretty epic setup.
Yeah, jeez.
I wish that people could kind of see the whole process of all the recording that went into this record. We have like little bits and pieces that we post, but it's considering the timeline that we're on and how much time we've spent in the studio and how much actually gets seen by the public. People would be appalled.
Yeah,
the level of chaos.
Yeah. It's insane. It's really crazy.
Like it's funny by the time it gets pressed onto the vinyl and the artwork's on there and it's released, it's like, wow, this is a nice professional product that's here. But really, the chaos behind that is maddening. That if people had any idea.
Oh yeah.
So when you sit down to play a Lost Symphony song or you hear it, like what are some of the thoughts that you go through in your mind in composing a part? Like what are some of the things you listen for? Like what are some things you fall back on? Like, where do you get your ideas from?
Honestly, it's a lot of just kind of like, it just comes out. I don't really think about it too much, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing.
No, it's amazing. You're like I swear to God, he's like an outlet to something else. He's like a conduit. So where he says he's not thinking about it, he comes in and his feel. Because like one of the things that in my opinion is great about Cory as a guy that edits and produces and mixes, and a guy like Paul is it still sounds natural. Paul hates quantization. Paul hates not doing it in takes. So we do really perfect takes. It may only be of 34 seconds, but we do perfect takes. And Cory will edit it, but there is breath. But it's so hard to have breath with 100 tracks, 120 tracks. But somehow with what Paul does and with what Cory does together, and then me yelling at everybody, taking credit for everything along the way, it ended up working and sounding pretty fucking rad.
No, totally. I give you all the credit in the world, Cory. I can't even imagine mixing like that many things and trying to get it to all come through in the final mix.
I find that drinking a lot helps, but no,
helps with Ben too.
Yeah, exactly. No, I
put it on my gums.
What you're saying about it, not thinking about it, I think that's just because it becomes instinctual after so many years of playing with how many bands have you been in?
40 or 50.
Yeah, so
oh
more.
Gosh.
So more.
That's way more than I thought. Wow.
You're at almost 100. Aren't you at 100?
No, it's only like 45 or 50.
That's a lot of bands.
I'd be surprised if it was more than 50.
This is a deep question, but this is important. So do you remember the album A Real Live One from Iron Maiden?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Do you remember that they had a chart of all the bands and all the different people from different bands that were together, and you'd pull it out and it had all like the family tree? Okay, well, there is a huge family tree. I feel like you, with all the bands that you're in, it's literally, when did you start playing in bands? Like what year?
1987.
So if you went on to your like
86?
actual Wikipedia, if it existed, it would start in 86.
Yeah, it probably would, yeah.
So you're like Prince. You have more unreleased recordings like than Van Halen.
Well, unfortunately, everything before probably the 2000s didn't have very good recordings. Like, recording was very expensive, and my bands would have to spend like $1,000 to record like 3 songs, and it would sound horrible. So, unfortunately, all that stuff is lost to the ages.
No.
But
no like old crappy cassettes that you find under the car seat.
Oh, I definitely I have bags and bags of old crappy cassettes. And actually, the first musical thing I did was go into the studio when I was, I think, like 13 or something like that. The band I was in, the bass player guy paid for us to go into the recording studio and record 2 songs. And they had like this crappy like electronic Simmons drum kit because it was like 1986. So literally this was, dinosaur technology. And I remember that I was a fucking basher, and I used to flip my sticks around to the other side and use the blunt end to play. And I fucking bashed the shit out of this poor guy's electronic kit. I swear it wasn't broken, but the plastic was all like rippled and shit. Oh, I felt so bad. But hey, that's what you get for letting a 13-year-old play your state-of-the-art, crappy 80s Simmons drums.
So what type of music were you primarily playing? Was it within like one genre? I mean, among all the bands, like what was there a trend or like mixed genre? Yeah,
generally I was into metal until the 90s when, Can
you define what metal is?
Primus.
Because, hold on, when you say metal, there's a lot of people thinking Meshuggah and like At the Gates.
Oh, well, that didn't exist.
So let our listeners and possible viewers of the ball bag that was around you earlier know what you mean by metal, because it's very different for you than it is for other people. So can we catch up? So what is metal? When you say you were doing metal, like what bands? What style?
Well, the first stuff that I listened to was like Motley Crue and Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister. Quiet Riot was the first metal band to have a number 1 hit. I guess, but at the time, again, it wasn't glam. That was just metal. There was no glam. Glam didn't really happen until, there was glam like...
So
Tommy
Lee wasn't wearing fucking lipstick in 1984?
No, he was wearing leather and studs and lipstick.
That sounds awfully gay to me, man. In a good way.
Gonna say
in a great way.
It's 2021, Ben.
Yeah. No, it's great, dude. If I could think about how much damage I could do if I walked out in this world looking like Tommy Lee in 1984. I'd just be so fabulously awesome, and I could play drums.
Yeah.
Do you so just while we're on Tommy Lee, like, were there any specific drummers that kind of inspired your style?
I mean, I loved Lars Ulrich when he first came out. When Metallica, when I first heard Ride the Lightning, I was like blown away. This was like the fastest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Fight Fire with Fire. I heard it on like, I think the radio show was called Nasty Habits. It was this old radio show, and they would just play like the newest metal. I heard like Anthrax on there for the first time. AIR from Spreading the Disease. That song blew me away. Another one that was like just the speed and the tenacity of it was what really sucked me in. That's why I got so bummed out when Metallica slowed down. I'm like, to me, Metallica is like fast.
Wait, what album
and
is that?
aggressive.
Wait, what album did they slow down?
You know what album that is. Don't
Wait,
ask
the Black.
me like
is
you
it
don't
really
know.
the Black Album for you?
Yes.
Because some people, I thought it could have been And Justice for All. Like you could be so like in your own head that like after Master, it's just over for you. It
depends how hardcore you are. I mean, I still say that when they made a video is when they jumped the shark. Metallica shouldn't be making videos. It's bullshit.
It's so funny the threshold that there is for that the way that Metallica is perceived. Because you started playing 86, 87. I was born in 87. And so my first Metallica album was the Black Album, that when I came of age, and I was like, this is fucking cool. I remember hearing like Enter Sandman on the radio, like when I was little, like and I was like, what the hell is like, it was the first time like moving my head back and forth instinctually. And so I was like, this is the heaviest thing in the world. And then I've listened to their older records. I was like, holy shit. Like this is a different band. Now I see why people hate them.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough transition. I mean, I liked And Justice for All, and I liked the Black Album when it came out. But it was just like over time that I just realized, and then like, what was the album after that? Was
Load.
Yeah.
And Reload.
Yeah, it went really bad, really quick. Like, the Black Album had some good tunes on there, and I liked it at the time, but in retrospect, it's like, and even then Justice for All, it's like the mix is so bad, and, I don't know. I can't deal with it. I'd rather listen to Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning any day of the week. Plus Cliff Burton. That's all I got to say about that.
No shit. Yeah.
There was still some Cliff Burton material left over by And Justice for All, but it was...
I gotta tell you, the first time because everyone has a first time they heard Metallica. The first time I remember like internalizing that Metallica was awesome was I was at like my friend's house, and he had like one of those TV descramblers. Remember those where you can watch Spice for free or whatever? You can, like watch the porn. So you didn't have to like see a boob in between like the lines or whatever.
Scrambled sex.
My parents weren't too keen on letting me watch Beavis and Butthead, so I'd like watch Beavis and Butthead when I was like at his place. And I remember one came on, the video that you talked about, and I was like, dude, and they got to the, and then Beavis and Butthead like, and that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And this was just as the Black Album was hitting, and that came out, and then I saw him being chased by Optimus Prime, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he's outrunning Optimus, and I'm like, and I'm hearing this, and I'm like, holy shit. And I remember thinking to myself, not only is Metallica the coolest, but then turning on MTV, and I think it was Kurt Loder was on MTV, and they were doing a Metallica, maybe it was the Live Shit Binge and Purge like contest, and Metallica were supposed to play, and Kirk Hammett had an emergency appendectomy. So like something like his appendix went fucking south, and he ended up taking it out and giving it in formaldehyde to the guy who won. Like he got to go play his school or his house or something. So Metallica showed up and played your house on MTV, and he hands him his fucking appendix. And I'm thinking to myself, that was such an allegory for Kirk Hammett's entire career.
That's a weird move.
Isn't that crazy? But that was like, that's so metal, dude. That's so metal.
So the question remains, I guess, how much would Kirk Hammett's kidney get on
appendix?
Appendix. How much would Kirk Hammett's appendix?
I think his kidney would get a lot more than his appendix.
Yeah, you think so? Probably yeah. Probably.
Well, because you could use that.
It's more useful, yeah, exactly.
You could use that. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know.
Nobody needs an appendix transplant.
He's a frou-frou-one drinking Zima.
Appendix transplant.
His cirrhosis is nowhere near what James Hetfield probably is. So I'm sure you could probably, his kidneys maybe, he's not in full renal failure at this point.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, so let me ask you this. What was it about metal in general that drew you in? Was it the speed or like what? I'm just curious because I come from the classical world, and I've come to love metal. Like I find it really fun and impressive and energetic. And I'm just curious from other instrumental standpoints, like what is it about it that you like?
What if someone called it energetic when you were in a metal band back in the day? Like, how would you feel about it? If your mom's like, I really like your energetic music.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. What was the question again?
I was saying what drew you to metal, or what do you like about metal in general?
Well, my dad and my stepdad and everybody I was friends with was really into metal, so it just kind of like that's what everybody was listening to. Like when I was really young, it was a lot of like Kiss and Aerosmith and stuff like that. And then once the 80s came around and bands like, Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister and Motley Crue and all that came out, kind of took a turn for that. And then once thrash came out, that was kind of more my bread and butter, if you will. And then the glam, I stopped liking glam metal and I started hating glam metal. And,
what was glam metal? Because you said you like Motley Crue, because a lot of people consider that glam now, and Quiet Riot is certainly considered glam now. But what was glam then when they turned stupid? Like when glam gone wrong?
It was pretty much like Motley Crue and stuff. Like Motley Crue, if you look at the first couple of records, they're all dressed in like black leather. So
when they went from
studs.
shitty to like shittier.
Yes. So Home Sweet Home, Smoking in the Boys' Room. And when they started wearing like, full spandex outfits, like Nikki Sixx had like a spandex like suit coat and stuff and like all like pink and white and, like, I don't know. It just
can't get behind it.
No.
And so is glam just the aesthetic, or is it actually like a musical style?
It's a little of both. I mean, it's mostly the aesthetic. The music is kind of basically just kind of cheesy.
It's like the bubblegum pop of the 80s.
Yeah.
With guitars,
Yeah. It's like, I mean,
so not as heavy.
Right. It's kind of like they took the musical style of like a Journey or or even like a Aerosmith, but shittier. Kind of, you know what I mean?
Like Cinderella.
Yeah.
Like Cinderella is like literally if you took Aerosmith, like one part Aerosmith and one part total horse shit, and just mixed it together and then snorted it. That's what Cinderella is.
I gotta say though, I kind of like Cinderella.
No, I like Cinderella. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're like if Aerosmith was one part horse shit.
They're totally
Aerosmith's way better than that.
The glam stuff was always really weird to me because it was very, very. It was dudes trying to get be manly, feminine. Like it was this big like, contradiction.
It was weird because they were like
I'm just trying to get
feminine.
Chicks and putting on lipstick and wearing blouses, but that was manly to them.
How do you feel about Steve Vai, like Passion Warfare or whatever, when he had like his nipples pierced with all like the different piercings, and then he had like the chains, and Terry Bozzio, he had a chain to Terry Bozzio's nose.
I have to say my story about Steve Vai is that I loved Steve Vai. I thought he was awesome in David Lee Roth, and I went out and I bought Flexible. And I brought it home, and I was just not into that at all. I was like, what the fuck? I mean, in retrospect, now I listen to it, I'm like, wow, this is really cool stuff. But at the time, I was just like, I don't know, the aliens talking and stuff with his guitar. And I actually took the tape and pulled it out of it and wrinkled it, wound it back up. I was like, I don't know, man. It got eaten the first time I tried to play it.
Wait, they return it? You want?
Yeah, I returned it.
No, you gotta give some context because people don't even know. Dude, you can't break your CD and return it to Media Play and be like, oh, I'm sorry, the CD came broken. So we need to explain to people that don't understand analog. Can you please give us an explanation for people who weren't even alive for Radio Shack?
I forget these people exist.
Yeah, it was it was a cassette tape, actual magnetic tape. So, you could, if you brought it home and it got eaten the first time, sometimes they would be nice enough to, take it in a return. I don't know why they would do that, because it seems to me like you just had a shitty radio that ate the tape. Yeah. But it worked, and I got Iron Maiden Live After Death instead.
Oh, way better choice.
Yeah, it was much more enjoyable, much more metal.
My first metal, that was my first Maiden record.
The Steve Vai record was not metal. I think that was my biggest problem, because I love Steve Vai, and, I appreciate all his weirdness. Also, Steve Vai was in Crossroads, which was another huge reason why I wanted to play music in general was that movie and the Jack Butler
Paganini.
scene.
We're doing, We're doing Paganini.
I know.
For chapter 3,
that actual...
which by the thing is, so that's what Steve Vai, everyone loves that, but what they don't realize is that movie is an allegory for Paganini, because Paganini in the 19th century played so fast on the violin, and if you listen to his 24 Caprices, which inspired Ritchie Blackmore, who then inspired Yngwie Malmsteen and all these neoclassical players, he actually, people believed he sold his soul to the devil because he played so fast. So like they were saying, like he was excommunicated from town, like because he really did play at such a, like when you first see Jeff Loomis Sweet Pick, you're like, that's not possible, because you saw Eddie Van Halen do the tapping. I remember the first time I heard the tapping, I was like,
yep,
you can't even do that. But then I learned how to do it. I'm like, okay, that can be done. But like the sweep picking, I was like, holy shit, it's the same kind of thing for me, man.
Yep.
And here's the cat.
Van Halen kind of invented glam, as a matter of fact. I feel like they were kind of the archetypical band, like as far as the fashion and stuff. Like a lot of the stuff that glam bands ended up wearing was.
You don't think Paul Stanley would be upset by that comment?
Yeah, I mean,
because Gene Simmons found Van Halen, and he'll tell you.
No, I know. We wouldn't have Van Halen if not for Kiss.
Yeah, no, I found Van Halen.
That's right.
I just didn't think they were that good at that point.
Little known fact that I discovered Van Halen.
Did you not know that Eddie Van Halen would not be who he is without me? Because I'm Gene Simmons. Was that accurate?
No, it's true. Yeah,
it's true. Gene Simmons produced the first Van Halen demos, I think, which became the last Van Halen record, and pretty much took credit for Van Halen. Because he's Gene Simmons, and why shouldn't he?
Yeah. Why stop there?
I mean, he tried to take credit for this, so...
That was clearly Dio's grandmother.
Yeah. He tried to copyright it.
Jeez, of course.
well, Paul, let me bring it back to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the bands that you were in? I mean, you mentioned you were in a lot of them, and obviously it developed your musicianship over time one way or another. So... can you kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of, some of the different projects you were involved in, any interesting stories?
Or what you've learned along the way? Yeah, like
exactly.
Any consistencies between all the bands? Like you've been in like 49. Sometimes you get tagged in a picture with Paul on Facebook and you're like, you see how many people, like his actual reach, and you're offended by how many people Paul, like his reach is like, if you shut off Paul, he's got way better social media than all of us, especially now since he has a ball bag for a cat and his amazing art. Like he has, because there's 1,000, you're tagged in all of his pictures of his band's family trees. So what do they all have in common? What is the thing, Paul? Give us the lowdown.
I don't know. The one thing.
Well, that's a loaded question. Just maybe tell us about some of the bands. I mean,
Is Joel yelling, "It's the Jews"?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been in, mostly I was in original bands for my whole musical career until the last like 10 or 12 years or so when I started playing covers, because I decided I wanted to make $1 here or there.
Yeah.
But
sure.
But it's definitely, I mean, those are two totally different worlds too, as far as playing in an original band and playing in a cover band. It's like almost polar opposites as far as the respect and the pay and like just everything involved in it. Original bands really like eat a shit sandwich for the most part in today's day and age.
Sure.
There's all kinds of pay to play, and you got to play at a show with 30 bands, and you're on this side stage that's like down the block, like behind a building, and you're playing while 3 other bands are playing, and it's you load in all your shit and you play like 5 songs, and then you got to load out and go home because there's no room for your gear in the club because there's 30 fucking bands. It's such a clusterfuck these days, unfortunately.
The other day, I was talking to someone, and it came up where there's like these very common and shared experiences amongst all dudes and girls in local bands. And one of them was getting the call the night before. Hey man, are you bringing your cab? Yeah. So actually, I'm curious, as someone who's had years of experience in the local band scene, what are some of your favorite like cliches that you've run into?
Oh man, I forgot my cymbals, of course. Yeah. It's always, if I ever bring my kit, there's bound to be somebody that forgot their cymbals. And what am I going to do? Be like, oh, it's too bad. Looks like you're playing without cymbals. Have a good set.
So you should keep just like a few smashed, broken ones in like your back seat. Like, let me set up the loners.
The last few times that I have backlined my kit, that's exactly what I fucking did.
That's smart.
Hey, tough shit, bring your own fucking shit.
I put on a hall show back when hall shows were a thing. When I was early on in my musical career, I was probably maybe 16 or 17 or something like that. So we rented out like a Knights of Columbus, put on a show. It was one of the first ones that I had done. And we had a band that was like a big local band. And so like they wanted to get on the show, but we already were pretty booked up. So I had them open but like opening at like 9, it was a hall show in like early 2000s. So it was packed. Yeah. And so, I get the backline set up and like coordinating with everything and everything's going great. Then their guitarist comes in. He's like, hey man, our drummer's like stuck in traffic. So we're gonna have to go on a little bit later. And I remember
Classic.
and I remember being prepared for that because someone would warn me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm like that sucks." Like, hopefully, if he gets here, before your set time's over, you guys can maybe get a song or two in. Yeah. And a miracle, the dude showed up like 5 minutes later. It was crazy.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, that's crazy how that works. Yeah, that's a classic move.
I think Starchat should try that if you guys are like opening for like some crazy Breaking Benjamin. Just be like, guys, our Adam's running late. So we're gonna headline tonight.
Sorry, it's.
Do people really think that's supposed to work? That's interesting. I was like, what was the point of that whole thing?
Can we just talk about
over your set?
Can we just talk about the people that book at clubs? Because look, I love a lot of clubs, but there's always this one promoter in every town, and everyone knows it who's ever played in a band that just knows the guy that has the gear in the band. So like, I was a guy that, if you didn't know, I'm a gear whore. And, Cory's another dude that, like, you can identify pretty quickly, like, has at least good quality gear in a car and doesn't have a drug habit, at least to anyone's knowledge. So, like, these promoters take note of that. So, like, 2 days before a show, they'll be like, hey, man, so we need to cut down set times. We need you to have, can they use your cabs? Yeah. And frankly, can they use your heads, and can they fuck your girlfriends? Can they use your toothbrushes?
We know you're going on at 9 and the last band's on at 1, but if you can set up your stuff and just leave it for the rest of the show, that'd be great.
But the greatest thing is that this one promoter in town would always, first off, he knew Paul. He knows Paul. And he knows that Paul does not like to lend out his stuff. In fact, Paul didn't even hang out a lot of the times at shows, not because he doesn't like bands, because he doesn't like people in the outside world. He'd smoke in his own bus by himself, like, stay the fuck away from me. But this one guy would always be like, hey man, do you think Paul, because he knew his name, do you think Paul would mind lending his kit? Like, and he'd bring out like a double Gretsch kit with like 2 kick drums, or like a beautiful kit. Like, don't fuck with me, like red sparkle, like perfectly set up. Be like, yo, do you mind if he does that? And I would be the guy that would have to ask him. And if you know Paul is the inverse of normal human beings. When he's angry, he looks like he's having a great time. So like, what do you be like, hey, Paul, could someone else use your drum set? He starts to smile a little bit. He's like, yeah, what do you mean? And then he's like, yeah, they're going to use your cymbals too. He's like, oh, my cymbals, how many cymbals do they need? Actually, this guy needs 2 full kick drums. What the fuck does he need 2 kick drums for? Fuck this show. I'm not even coming. You know what I mean? So like, I hate that. Everyone who's listening, who's ever been in a band, knows there's a promoter that knows if you have gear, that you're the back line. And that's the only reason he's even going to put your band on at 9:15 without selling 643 tickets.
Yeah, the catch-22 is that the only thing worse than letting some other asshole bash the shit out of your drums is having to play somebody else's shitty bashed-on drums and with their like band's logo on your front drum head, and like, it's like, what the fuck, dude? And it's always garbage, and has no tone. The kick drums just like sounds like a paper bag.
Paint a picture for people. Like what kind of kit is this? First off,
geez, I don't know.
Is it like a Ludwig rocker, but it's like it's been like rocked?
Yeah, yeah. Just like the cheesiest, shittiest thing you've ever seen, with the oldest drum heads on the planet, and broken cymbals, and stands that don't go up or down, and you can't adjust them, and a drum stool that's like 2 inches off the ground, and
We did a few gigs at one place in Boston, and a nicer place, but they had a mandatory backline for amps.
Yep.
Which, like, not even like, not just cabs, like amps, like couldn't even bring your own stuff. And I've never been a huge like gear snob, but like, you know, I try to make whatever I play sound good. But we showed up and it was me. There's two guitarists in the band, and so I grabbed like it was like, you know, we're like a rock band, and I think they gave me like some sort of like Fender very clean amp, and I'm like, I don't. Like, where's, you know, so I gained it up as much as I could. The other guitarist got an amp that it died.
Oh, nice.
So
Perfect.
he just didn't play.
Oh my
And
God.
it's like if you're gonna backline and you show up, you're down one guitarist tonight.
Well, hold on. That's why when you've been beat down so much, you find your Cory, because I saw, just like everyone has seen in our videos, that Cory has a big block 5150. Okay, and when I saw him play, Paul was there at the show with me. Paul was in the band with me. I probably went up to Paul and said, "Dude, that guy is pretty good at guitar. Fuck that dude. I hope that band dies." Like, first off, and then we probably played another show with them, and they brought a lot of people.
It was at Copperfields.
Yep. And then we played another show with them.
99% sure.
Yeah, at the Hard Rock, and I was kind of annoyed because I think they actually brought more people than us. So I was like, "Fuck these guys!" And BJ was beautiful, and Cory has these deep blue eyes, and I was just like, but he was playing this beautiful 5150 through a 412 or whatever, and I was like, okay, noted.
Well, he had a Gibson, so we knew he was serious.
Right. So then I like went up to you and I was like, dude, their drummer Eric, like, he looks like he has halfway decent shit. Like, if we play with those guys again, like, we could totally tell Lionel, bro. Like, listen, put them on right before us, and then just make them backline everything, and we'll just tell them, like, hey, listen, can we use it for our set? It's cool. And then I'd call Cory like a day before
I love how
the show.
in the discussion of like scummy things, of like things that have happened to us, Ben's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's a great idea. I support that."
That's exactly what I would always do.
Yeah, no, I just because it would be dropped on me, so I'm just like, fuck it. Like, if it's my kid or your kid, it's gonna be your kid. I pass the buck.
Fuck or be fucked.
Yeah, that's the name of our new record. Fuck or be fucked.
So Siobhán,
Chapter 3,
life like?
LostSymphony.com. Subscribe.
What was life?
2020-D.
Oh my God, Ben.
What was life like in your local band scene, Siobhán?
I was just going to say I'm going to sound bougie as fuck saying this. It's like, it was definitely
in between cricket games.
It was definitely a slow transition into understanding what bands, like the band world, is really like, because I started in classical music where it's like you show up in a beautiful theater in a beautiful city,
you're showered,
dressing room, and it's like 1 minute overtime in rehearsal, you get paid extra money. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that. There's one level of that, and like no one would put on a concert unless it's like pristine and like really prepared. And then there's like, I go to play shows in arenas, where it's like you still get a dressing room and it's still very prepared. And then like, you keep going down the levels, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe some scenes, it's like with the stories you guys tell.
I'll never forget the first time.
Wild.
The first time I got paid for a rehearsal. I was like, they gave me money. I was like, what? Are you shitting me?
I told all of you guys I knew when I made it. I knew when I made it was when I went to the House of Blues in Boston, and I got paid $1,500
to DJ.
To DJ.
It does not count.
No. To DJ the House of Blues in Boston, and they're like, "Do you want some of your some food?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I've been to the green room a million times at the House of Blues. Anyone that knows me that's ever been in a band that's been there knows that I go and like raid their shit at the House of Blues. But I went to the green room, and this time my name was on the green room door.
Yeah,
I took a picture.
Corporate gigs are sweet, man. We get it.
And hold on. And I went inside. The refrigerator was unlocked, which was unusual because I usually get there when it's locked. It was unlocked, and I made myself chocolate milk, and I was sitting there drinking my chocolate milk, thinking to myself, this is heaven.
Meanwhile, an actual musician was sitting at home broke.
Yeah, no, that's how shitty it is. That's the thing that kills me.
I'll give you credit because at least you are an actual musician, but it's just, it breaks my heart.
No, they had a band. They had a band at this corporate thing, and the bass player was there for 10 minutes with the House of Blues guy going, "Why can't I hear anything?" So I walked down. I'm waiting to do my fucking test. They have a whole fucking list. All I need to do is a line test. Check 1, check 2, bye. So I go down there, and I realize that for 15 minutes, these fucking idiots don't realize that the bass amp is on standby. So I just go boop and then I'm like, can I do my check? I'm like 1, 2, and I was the fuck out of there. And they're like, whoa, what was that? I'm like, that's called being a professional, not just being a musician. But the fact is, it could have been a band. I could have been that band. I wasn't that band. I was the DJ. And that's the truth. The fucking truth hurts. Being a DJ is like MTV. It's not music. It's not music. It's the challenge.
Wow, that was an epic rant. No, but it's not to, moving beyond that. No, but it is, I have so much respect for people that grew up in bands and had to like trailblaze their own way, because like classical musicians, you have to work really hard on the front end side, like the school and all this stuff. And there are barriers to entry, but once you get into the professional world, you're pretty well taken care of, and you don't realize it because you're in that world with other people. I'm trying to picture
Siobhán at like a Jared's Place gig, which is this club that doesn't exist anymore, but it was like a downstairs basement dingy club full of smoke, and like the green room was like a closet behind the stage where there was probably someone like shooting up, like Siobhán tuning her violin and getting ready for performance.
No, but like the venues, like what you have to do, you have to write music, you have to record an album, you have to somehow find money to tour, you have to drive overnight in a van. Like some of the stuff, like even joining Starset, I as the string player got brought in once they had some money to spend on a string player, and like as a violinist, you're totally unaware of that because that's just, it's a different world, until you're in it.
Should have played violin.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, each different area has its, its difficulties, but yeah, I think about all the work they had to do before that point, like all the hustling and the crazy driving across the country, even in local band, whatever, you got to lug your shit around, you got to set it up, you got people being rude to you, like you don't get space, like.
And at that point too, there wasn't like the internet to like research like how to have a career in music, so you had to rely on the people around you, which are other bands which are also not successful probably.
Right.
So you're looking at what are they doing? They're selling a t-shirt with like a big dick on it. Oh cool, let's see if that works for us,
Awesome.
And then
they're driving all around town putting flyers up on windows and people are ripping them down 5 minutes later. That sounds like a good idea.
We're gonna do the same thing but with better tape. That'll be our marketing.
Yep. I used to drive through the drive-throughs at like Burger King and stuff and slap my flyer on the drive-through. Like we used to spend days just driving around town and taping up flyers and driving people crazy.
Yeah. But that's what you did, because what else were you going to do?
Right.
And
that was the only way to get the word out.
There'd be like the one band that like kind of makes it a little like becomes a regional band outside of like the local band. And it's just like, wow, dude, they're playing like 4 towns over. Like they're crushing it. They played a high school battle of the bands.
Yeah. If anybody wants to watch something to explain to them what it was like to be alive and in a band in the 80s, watch The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2. It not only goes over the flyer thing, it goes over the whole dudes looking like chicks and trying to get laid thing. And like the whole thing. It was such a weird time. Do you think
that was like Mel Brooks was like a Nostradamus? Was he like George Orwell, except for the 80s? So he was like in 1984, he was 1984's George Orwell.
Wait, who was?
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks was George Orwell.
Wasn't he History of the World, right?
No. Yeah, I never saw that one.
But isn't that what you just referenced?
No, Decline of Western Civilization.
Oh my God, my wires got crossed, and I literally heard what I just wanted to, and this is like Paul and my entire relationship. Didn't you say
I think that's your relationship with the world.
Like, what are you talking about, Ben?
What? I was trying to make a joke, and I literally wasn't even talking about the same movie.
That's all right.
Terrible. That's my whole life.
It was a documentary about metal.
Yeah, it's great. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out.
It's the movie with Chris Holmes, where Chris Holmes, the infamous pool scene.
It's not the rock and roll parking lot.
No,
I gotta watch this. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't? Oh my God! No, you should. Totally.
Yeah, I think
you should see it.
That's actually required viewing for you, Siobhán, to appreciate.
Yeah.
Everything you skipped.
Sure.
Have you seen Spinal Tap, Siobhán?
Oh, of course. That's there was a time when I didn't know what Spinal Tap was, and I was like, yeah, I gotta watch this, or else I'm missing out on.
Well, you know
all
what's
the
great about
references.
Spinal Tap is that when I was, I think, in a metal band signed at 17 touring, I watched that movie, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, this isn't funny. This is not funny at all. Like,
Did it hit too close to home?
No, it's not that it hit too close to home. I like literally was just like, okay. None of it seemed weird to me. And now, like, I watched it again. I I want to say a year ago, and I'm like, I'm so stupid for ever thinking that this is not the funniest thing ever made. Like, it's so many levels of funny. And the fact that it's such dry humor, it just shows how stupid I was. Like, literally, that I was sniffing glue and that my brain had not even closely, fully developed for me to destroy it smoking.
And on that note,
you've been 2020. Stick around for Paul later this week, and fuck you. Subscribe.
And go to lostsymphony.com and buy some things, please.
Oh, that band. LostSymphony.com that features Siobhán, the really nice one.
Thank you.
And I didn't want to just move for 3 months and then have to go back because I got like no visa. So that was basically, all right, sign up for some school and then you get...
Or 90-day fiance.
Yeah,
visa.
Well, that's the modern version. This is back in the day when people actually had to do something to come here.
That's what my grandma always whispered, like, yes.
Find a nice Jewish doctor. He can take care of you. And then this guitar thing will be fine.